companies. He's taught at the USC Graduate School. And he has also served in the higher levels of leadership at the Toastmaster organization, which is very few and far between individuals who have done that. Please help me welcome Wayne Sebera, Perfecting Your Management and Leadership Talent.
Yeah, just need to put it where you can see it. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
You came down for the 3 eats, didn't you? Wasn't that a delicious dinner?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I had a little bit of everything. Did you?
Yeah.
I have an interesting talk for you tonight. I'm condensing 50 years of experience, several degrees in management, engineering, psychology, and all of those things that I've been doing into 45 minutes. So if you've ever drunk from a fire hose, it's something to what you'll be doing tonight. However, when I talk about perfecting your management and leadership skills, I need to show my slides, but they're not quite ready, so let's just take a moment and pause. Perfecting management and leadership skills. First of all, have you ever known, any of you, a perfect manager?
No.
Have you ever known a perfect leader?
No.
No.
You see, those are more visionary ideas. It's an exponential curve. It's not go from A to B. It's like the mathematician and the engineer that were arguing about the distance to the goal line in a football game. You're penalized half the distance to the goal line, and then half the distance to the goal line, and half the distance to the goal line. And the mathematician starts laughing and he says, "Oh, that's crazy. I know you'll never get there. You'll only get halfway each time. You'll never make it." The engineer says, "Yeah, but I'll get close enough to make it count." We need to find out what it is in your mind that would be perfection. Because each of you is on your own pathway. Each of you is on your own path to the goal line, to the mission of your life. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about management and leadership. And I'd like to just ask you, how many of you are either entrepreneurs working in medium or small size organizations or working in a large corporate organization? How many of you don't know? How many of you don't care? You see, there is a little bit of difference whether you're an entrepreneur, a one-man band, and I've had a one-man consulting company, ran for a number of years, it did quite well. And I've also worked for a number of very large corporations, primarily in the aerospace and defense industry. I rose to vice president in 2 of those companies. I saw what it took to perfect my management leadership style and skills and talents and relationships to allow me to progress that way. Part of that was I was invited to teach in the graduate school at USC in the coursework about systems management. We covered 53 different topics pertaining to systems management. Ran for a whole semester. Tonight, that's about 5 minutes of my talk. So I hope you enjoy it. ISM presentation. Let's see if we can get this to work. Can you see the slide okay? Is it visible? Spencer, can you read it from back there? Perfecting your management leadership skill. So perfecting is all about in the eye of the beholder. Perfection, you don't have to absolutely be an all-time perfectionist, but you do need to always be on a pathway of improvement. You need to understand where you are now and where you're going and what you need to advance the way you want to. I'll be sharing with you some of those ideas tonight. Our agenda, we'll be talking about goals for today, tomorrow, and beyond. Today is today, of course. But we'll look at what you're going to be doing with this tomorrow and the next day. Management leadership, 5 principles of management and how they apply to you. Comparatives and social memes. You know what a meme is? I'll tell you later. The digital economy. Do you know what the digital economy is? The digital economy is where we're headed. It's automating computers, everything else that's changing the way we do business. And finally, we will look at impactful results for each of you personally. What are these things we talked about tonight that may impact your life, your career, your relationships? So I ask you to do one thing. Your call to action is, as we go through these various topics and we talk about them, some of those topics are going to ring true for you. Some of those topics are going to say, Jose, I'm really good at that. I know what that's all about. So these areas that you're really good, you want to take those, nurture them, and expand them. And be willing to share and teach others, to mentor, to coach. You'll also see some areas, well, I'm probably a little weak in that area. I would like to learn more about how to excel in that area. So keep an idea of what's working well, what could use improvement. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the meeting. So today we're going to be reviewing our management skills and leadership talents. Can we move this back to enlarge that just a little bit, Joe? Going to review those. The call to action is for you to analyze your strengths, for you to analyze what areas to work and what next steps to take. Somebody said, I think I've seen you before, so I thought, is that better?
Yeah.
This is my 4th ISM presentation, and I'm going to keep doing it till I get it right. You can see I come back about every 2 years, so based on that, I'll be back again in 2021. Some of you may remember we talked about personality styles and communication. It was all about how do we relate to other people? What are the styles that I am comfortable with? And what are the different styles that people may use in relationships? We talked a lot about the strategies and the understanding, and that work was based on work from Charles Jung, Dr. Jung, and many, many people have written stories about personality, styles. Have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs test? There's different types of classifications that will identify what your talents, your interests, your biases might be. The next one was a similar talk, but it tended to focus a little bit more on the ISM CPS manual for certification and leadership in the ISM organization. Last briefing was here with the San Fernando Valley about conflict resolution. We talked about why people get into conflict, what you might do about conflicts, how to mediate them, how to handle conflicts, how to recognize issues, and deal with solutions. Tonight, we're going to address perfecting your management leadership talents. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Management leadership. Management is all about coordinating business activities, interlocking business functions. You can see the things there that are part of management. And management is more about tending store, keeping things working. It's all about becoming efficient in our job. And management can range from a one-person management like an entrepreneur or a consultant. When I had my one-man consultancy, I still needed to manage. I needed to manage finances, I needed to manage projects, I needed to manage relationships, I needed to manage certifications and requirements of government reporting. All of those things need to be managed. When you go to corporations, you will find there's multiple levels, or same as in the government. There was some discussion about some of the larger companies that are in the top 10 or so. They may have 10 or 12 or 15 levels of management. You'll have managers on managers and so forth. Tend to classify them as top management or executive management. This is the board of directors, the chairman, presidents. Years ago, I remember there used to be a president of a company. Now there's a CEO of a company and there's multiple presidents. For a business area or business line, they'll have a president, CFO, and so forth, chief operating officer as well. We're talking about many thousands of managers in some of these companies, and in the government as well. Management characteristics are focus, focus, focus. Just like the little fox, never lose focus. We want to perform, we want to see how things are going, we want to see what's working well, and how to tune up our techniques. Setting up policies, managing the team. Primarily it's short-term focus with attention to details. And this is where coaching may come in Coaching is all about focusing on short-term ideas, short-term goals, and doing the things that help coach another person to achieve those objectives. Leadership is a little broader and more strategic. At the bottom, you'll see leaders will step up, they'll think, they'll act creatively. It's all about having a vision for the organization. So any activity that helps lead people in organizations, or if there's a social influence to it, I want to figure out how to lead this team of people. You can look at balancing conflicts of interests, look at providing information. Those are the things about leadership. See that little cat? He's really a good leader, isn't he? He's got confidence, courage, discipline, intelligence, you can tell. How do you present yourself? When you're being a leader, do you assume the leadership role? And what is your leadership style? We talked a little about that in the last presentation. The leadership style may range from autocratic to consensual to passive. And we'll say more about that in just a minute. All 5 virtues together, one can be a leader. You need to have all of them. Which one do you think is the most important? Which of the 5 is the most important?
Trustworthiness.
Trustworthy. How many think it's trust? How many think it's something else?
Humanness.
How many think it's intelligence? How about courage? Well, it takes all 5, doesn't it? It's like the 5 points on a star. They have to all be there in order for it to be whole. The sign of a good leader is not how many followers you have, but how many leaders you create. How many leaders you create. If you're leading an organization, it's your style, you're a role model. You are giving examples, you're giving mentorship and coaching to those on your team. And ideally, there will be a group of them that will come up, gain these additional skills, push you up into a higher position, for a greater profit or a greater responsibility. That's what leadership is all about, to share that with others. The difference between management and leadership: management helps you climb the ladder faster. It's about efficiency. I want to know how to work these tools. I want to know how to do the books. I want to know accounting, how to do marketing, all of the aspects of running the business. I want those to be efficient, accurate, profitable. Leadership, well, that's to make sure the ladder's against the right wall. Are you working the right problem? Management techniques can be taught, but leadership can't really be taught. It can be coached and mentored, but it's not something you read about in the book. It's something that requires passion and innovation. You need to get out and lead. That's where the difference is. Recognize that leader. First company to hit $1 trillion. Be a yardstick of quality. Some people aren't used to an environment where excellence is expected. Steve Jobs. What a fabulous leader he was. Can you name some other people that rise to leadership quality in their mind? You were mentioning Bill Gates a little bit earlier. Bill Gates certainly would fit that. What other leaders really set the standard to lead the organization? Can you think of one?
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett? Okay. Steve Jobs was a pretty amazing guy. When I lived in Silicon Valley, I had the chance to meet him one time. He's very intense, very knowledgeable, and quite an amazing man. He was so creative and accomplished so much in a short life. Leadership is important in nations as well. This is a map of 2 different nations. One is Venezuela, Argentina, the other is Hong Kong. The leadership of one had a vision and a focus that did not work. And you see how over the years there was a decline. They ranked originally up about 11 or 12 in the world, now they're number 62. Hong Kong, on the other hand, had a different vision. They showed leadership in the marketplace and in the industry and began to develop the country. And now they're way up here near the top. So what do great leaders say to teams? What are the kinds of things they say? Ryan, read one of the colored items that strikes your attention. Thank you. Why would the leader say thank you, Ryan? What's that about? You appreciative? How would that make a difference?
Reinforcement for doing the job, right?
Speak up.
Reinforcement for doing the job well done, right?
Reinforcement.
Recognition.
Spencer, do you see one of the colored items that strikes you?
I like the one that says, I have complete faith in you.
I have complete faith in you. When someone that you're working for says that to you, what do you feel? You feel empowered. You feel great. Isn't that good? Monica, do you see one that you like?
Yes, I value your contribution.
I value your contribution. What are these ideas all about? You see the recognition that goes with it? Recognition is all about telling another person, I recognize you, you're a person and an important part of this organization. Here's feedback to you that reinforces that, recognizes you, empowers you, gives you motivation, gives you the tools to be motivated. You can't really motivate another person. You can only create the environment for them to self-motivate. Anybody else see one they'd like to mention? Alan?
Sorry, my fault.
Sorry, my fault. Taking ownership of...
Taking responsibility, ownership for your actions,
Exactly.
and not blaming other people.
Exactly. Do you have one else?
What do you think?
Which one?
What do you think?
What do you think? Asking for input, helping build that team. So you see there's great things about this chart that really nurtures, builds, and grows leaders. These are the areas you want to strive for. If you were going to be a perfect leader, can you see the ideas that will go with that? 5 habits of an effective leader. You must have a vision. If you have the vision as the leader, you're the carrier of the vision, you hold it for the rest of the team, you build on that vision, you excite people about the vision, you have passion for it, you walk the talk. Not only do you talk about that vision, but you show how it's going to work. You communicate it with your whole team and with everyone in the sound of your voice and beyond, and you have courage with it. Another quote by Sun Tzu, "A leader leads by example, not by force." Carol, do you like that? I do too. So let's talk 5 principles of management. 5 principles of management. Kuntz and O'Donnell were 2 professors at UCLA. A few years back, actually a few decades back, they published a book. It's a classic book called The Principles of Management. Have any of you read that book, studied that book? There's one over here. Wasn't that a good book? It really puts all the perspective about management into place. One of the management courses that I took used this book as a textbook. And as part of the class, we had to write white papers. One of the white papers I had to write was a 5-page essay on General Motors. Alfred P. Sloan. What did Alfred P. Sloan do that dealt with planning? What did he do with organizing? How about staffing? How about directing, controlling? What was interesting about Alfred P. Sloan and General Motors, he wrote a policy for everything. He wrote down, this is what we believe, this is how we do it. He even wrote so many policies that at one point he had to write a policy about policies. But look what General Motors grew to become. These fundamental principles are important because when you learn a principle, it's good for all time. The difference between a principle and a piece of information is that the principle persists. You learn about dealing with people and relationships and giving feedback and recognition. That's a principle regarding staffing that's going to always benefit you. By the way, 2 million copies, that'd be pretty good for your books. If you, when you get to 2 million copies, you'd be doing okay, right?
Absolutely.
Staffing is real important, but when we're trying to staff a new person or you're applying for a job, we talked a minute ago, Spencer was asking about jobs openings and people looking There weren't too many tonight, but frequently there are. Right now, there's an abundance of jobs available. It's not always that way. I remember different periods. In fact, being in the aerospace industry, there was a major ebb and flow, always. Take a look at the attributes. When you're interviewing, you're looking at the items on the left. These are the things you can discern when you interview an applicant. You're getting at the best information you can about the applicant. But how well do the factors on the left predict whether it's going to be a good hire? There's no way, at the interview, you can't tell if they'll achieve results, exceed expectations, be responsible, whether they collaborate, coach, mentor. So there is an opportunity in your management leadership portfolio to study these kinds of characteristics, the preceding characteristics and the resulting characteristics. Both are very important. How many of you interview others for job positions? Any of you? Several of you are interviewing other people. Very important. When you're looking for staff, this is a good set of principles that you might look at. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book called The Four Agreements a few years ago. Very popular book. And it basically boiled down to 4 things you need to know to be successful in life. Not just in your job, not just in your relationships, not just in your personal life, but all aspects. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. Be truthful. Be honest. Be aware. What's impeccable mean? Can't peck it, right? It's going to be good. Impeccable with your word. What do you think about don't take anything personally? It's all personal at the bottom line, isn't it, Joe?
If you want to be successful in the business world, you have to realize what you're doing there is business. It's not a playground.
Exactly.
You know, everybody's.
Exactly. So if you take it personally, you get in the way of the business. And yet, we're all individuals dealing with one another. So there must be a balance. Must be a balance. I'll say more about that on the comparables in a minute. Don't make assumptions. If there's something that's important to a decision, let's get all the facts on the table. Let's don't hide the evidence. Let's don't put things in the back of the drawer. We want to have all the best information so we can decide. And finally, always do your best. One of the things I learned in my career, and as I say, I rose to the vice president's job in 2 large companies, and they were all based on the fact that I had to do my best in whatever assignment I was given. One of the observations I made is that what it took to get the promotion is not necessarily what it took to do that job. I have to excel in what I'm assigned to do now, right now, the present. If I do my very best job and excel, then I'll be looked at as someone who is success-oriented, able to accomplish objectives, someone who plays win-win, someone who is good for the company. That opens the door to being a nomination for the next level. It doesn't guarantee that the next level will always work. However, that opens the door. Building a team. When we're building a team and we look at staffing, it's a human trait that we tend to look for people that are most like ourselves. If you don't carefully look at diversity in your hiring, you will end up with a team of people that are all alike. And when they're all alike, you will find there are blind spots, there are conflicts, there are power struggles, there are many different things that happen because you haven't filled the full spectrum. Think of it as a bicycle wheel with spokes. Each of the spokes is a different characteristic and attribute of what you need in the job and in the company. If you only hire people that are capable of doing certain things, people that all have the same personality traits, same backgrounds, same interests, then you're only going to fill a few of those spokes. And some of the other spokes will be very short. Bicycle's going to have a bumpy ride. Now the diversity I'm talking about here is what is the full skill set that your team needs. For example, Toastmasters is getting ready to have our district convention in May the 4th, 3rd and 4th. We'll be in Oxnard. We'll have several hundred people coming all over from Nevada and California. We'll have guests coming from all over the world. That planning and organization team required people that knew marketing and public relations, people that knew accounting and registration skills, people that were able to book speakers, people that were able to work with the facility, find out all the things that were associated there. So understand what it is the big picture, and then look at what are all the things you need to fulfill that. Notice how the jigsaw pieces sort of fit together when everyone pulls in the same direction. That's what team is all about. Here's a good team. Helping the little ones. Everybody is mentoring and coaching. Would you say that that's a happy family? You're doing well. This is the thing I talked about in that talk a few years ago, personality styles. When you look at relationships going up the vertical axis, if you or the people you're talking to consider relationships to be very important, you're going to go up the scale. If you feel the task or the goal is very important, you move to the right on the scale. If you think relationships and goals, neither of them are very important, you're going to be a turtle. You hide your head in the sand, in the shell, you don't really deal with it. If all you care about is relations, and you don't care about getting the job done, you'll be a teddy bear, you'll be very accommodating, but the work will not get done. The other extreme, if you're only looking at the goals, you'll become a shark. Relationships won't work. So right in the middle is the compromiser, the fox, very sly and cagey. We're going to try to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and work together. We're sooner or later going to get things done. But the fox only compromises to get halfway there, because the real answer is the collaboration, the owl, the wise old owl. I want both the maximum of the goals and the maximum of the relationships. What's the secret to make that happen? Would you say that has something to do with perfecting your management style, perfecting your leadership style, understanding how you view relationships in your team, how you view the goals and the tasks in your team, and what about the others that you work with? How does that all fit together? Just think about that a minute, your current team. Where is it really working well, where it could improve? Whatever your grade or position, if you know how and when to speak and when to remain silent, your chances of real success are proportionately increased. Some of you know, but some of you may not know, this is Ralph Smedley, who was the founder of Toastmasters about 95 years ago, down in Santa Ana, California. Today, that idea that he started with a YMCA group of young men has blossomed into over 350,000 memberships, 143 countries of the world, and over 16,600 clubs from that one idea. Would you say that was a pretty good idea? That's the seed that everyone in this room has the opportunity to plant. You have the opportunity to plant your ideas in fertile ground, to nurture them, to work with them, and to let them grow. That's what perfecting leadership is about. Sometimes we get pushy and things happen, conflicts occur. This was one slide from the 1-hour presentation I gave on conflict management and a 4-hour workshop. It all boils down to one slide. What style do you use to address a conflict? You try to overpower, you try to compete, you say, oh, I'll do whatever you want. I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. Never done it. That was from my movie, Wayne's World. Sometimes people just withdraw. I can't deal with this, I'm not going to handle it, I'm going to leave. Compromises, everybody's helping. Collaborating. Collaborating is the teamwork where people pull together. One of my clients was Raytheon, that I worked for as a consultant for a number of years. And then eventually, when I reached 65, and I realized that they could get rid of a consultant in 1 hour, and they wanted to hire me, I became an employee because they couldn't get rid of an employee that easily. No, seriously, I worked with them as a consultant for a number of years, and then I became an employee. The point I wanted to make is Raytheon really emphasizes management leadership training. They have over 100 training programs that are both online and in person. And one of the key themes of all the training is collaboration. If there was one word to take away, it's collaborate. Collaborate. What does collaborate mean?
Work together.
Carol, say it again. Work
Do
together.
that together, right?
Right.
You collaborated tonight's program, putting it all together, working together, each person pulling their weight, doing part of the job. So what style do you like to use? What do you personally use? Take a look at that for yourself. Think back to times you were involved in a conflict. How did you handle it? What did you do? Did you use a win-win approach to solve it? Did you recognize and honor the other person? Sometimes in conflict resolution, we use a role model technique where each person is asked to represent the other person's case. And when you do that, you would have to explain what that person was saying, feeling, wanting, moving towards, and then the second person would do the same. And when you begin to articulate the other person's point of view and issue, you begin to understand. Steve Covey, seek first to understand, then be understood. It all fits together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Comparatives and social norms. Here's some comparatives. How many of you are entrepreneurs versus corporate entrepreneurs? So we got a couple. How many of you are more corporate businesses? Large companies primarily? Farmers Insurance, how many employees in Farmers? Thousands. 10,000 employees. What are some other companies, Larry? What's your company?
Well, currently, I work for a laboratory company, Kansas Labs, but previously was AeroVironment, Eagle.
AeroVironment? Yeah. We're doing real well on the market, aren't we? But we still got some stock.
Right, well, I did drop it.
It went down from 100, but it's still
Right,
pretty good.
yeah.
Entrepreneur and corporate, these management principles, they apply the same. The principles are working whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate executive, either at the top level, the middle level, or the bottom level. Those principles, you have to learn planning. Be able to plan your tasks, the steps to take, the sequences, the relationships, the resources needed. You must be able to organize. How do you organize the resources that are available to you? You must be able to direct the efforts so that it's done efficiently. All of those 5 principles fit in. Profit versus nonprofit. Any of you in a nonprofit organization? What do you work with?
UCLA.
UCLA? Great. So did you know Professor Clinton O'Donnell? That was probably before your time.
But they did have a.
Profits and nonprofits basically have similar problems, but they have a little bit different objectives. So there are different metrics to be used, but the principles still apply. Who knows what theory X and theory Y apply to? You can make an XY plot. It gets similar to that personality style plot I showed you earlier, but here we're talking about whether your interest is in production or your interest is in people. You can plot it on an XY plot. How far out on the axis, how far from the origin are you going to go? Are you going to be a 10 by 10, a 5 by 5, or a 1 by 1? Or a 0 and a 10? So all of those X and Y characteristics, when you get into an organization, you'll find that some are more production-oriented and others are more people-oriented. Span of control, deep organizations with many levels versus shallow. SAIC Corporation is 3 levels. CEO, directors, and everybody. I have no clue how many levels our government is or our top corporations, but there's a big difference of span of control managers managing managers managing managers. There's a little different to the technique, but the principles still are the same. Controlled, central versus distributed. Are you an autocrat, dictator, a director? Or are you a consensus-oriented person, federation, where you have multiple activities coming together? Active and passive, hands-on versus delegation. And strong leader or weak leader. You exercise influence and lead, or do you just stand back and watch things happen? The person who says it can't be done should not interrupt the person doing it. I love that picture. Don't you love that picture? Can you imagine that gentleman walking on the edge of the basket? Because he can do that. How many of you in here can do that? Probably not many of us. I remember when I worked at TRW for a while, we had a major report that was due by a very tight scheduled date, and I was determined we were going to meet that schedule, and I set out and wanted to make that happen. There were 3 or 4 people, including my secretary and 2 of the team leaders, who said, "It's impossible. There's no way we can do it. Why even bother? Why try?" So I went off and I just did it, and turned it in, and it was met on time. And so I think this principle for me really touches home. Any one of you can do that. If you are doing something that may appear impossible to someone else, simply because you have more talent, you have more ability, so use it, apply it. Racism sucks. Being falsely accused of racism sucks too. This is a topic that's on the news lately. It's been a topic of much unpleasantness, much stress, strife. The basic message is the golden rule. Do unto others as you expect them to do unto you. And it all boils down